Welcome everyone to Navigating the Technology Landscape Be Connected group. So I'm excited because Be Connected is a new platform and it kind of gives a good jump start for many of us that are new. So I want to definitely take advantage of that and kind of establish a presence here for technology and um, get a few different people other than me on here to talk about what they do and how they use technology to help businesses. As I go through some of this, I'll point out some of the areas that I'm good at and some that I'm just kind of learning and kind of free forming it. So definitely open if you have topics you think are relevant to the group and would like to put on like a learning session. I'm definitely looking to recruit. So a little bit about me. I'm in Fort Worth, Texas. I've been a software consultant for about 5 years, a software developer for 10. And I've kind of looked to move from the model of being a corporate consultant to a consultant to small businesses. So I'm kind of in transition mode. I've finished my master's in 2013 and only recently have tried to move to more of like an agency type model. So a couple of my good platforms that has kind of helped springboard my effort is definitely Be Connected. Can vouch for the platform, kind of innovative, it's early, growing, but definitely feels like a good place. I'm a member of a barter exchange. So this model is you trade services for services. There's a ledger account that you can kind of keep track of dollar values, but you never actually realize it. So it's kind of a cool, different avenue if you're just trying to get your name out there and people don't have to actually spend money for you to get services, but you can still eventually exchange it. And actually, I found Be Connected through the Richardson Plano Networkers, which is a group by David Roberts. And he's kind of an early adopter of Be Connected, and he's the one person that I helped me find it. And my company is called Mad Logic. We're a small group. I kind of wear two hats where I'm doing the business development and programming, but there's also two other people that work with me and kind of help. We do full stack development, but really we're trying to generate a niche in doing data integrations and data automation. So that would be things like what Zapier does, where it tries to connect these services that are out on the internet through their APIs and then connect them to other parts. So when you can't get specific enough to your workflows, that's kind of what we're trying to niche in. So the group, kind of what I thought, and it's going to be kind of a living, evolving thing to see how people react to it and enjoy it. So the first part, I kind of tried to break into networking. You kind of want to hear what people have going on, let people share their ideas or brainstorm, because sometimes it's hard to get a feel for viability of something you're coming up with or interest if you can't brainstorm and share it. So I think that's almost as important as just having a learning session. And I kind of want to help facilitate that, especially on a more focused topic. And then 40 minutes is kind of the guts of it to do a learning session, help relay a technology that you represent, or just kind of like a lunch and learn, share a life hack or just improvement of your day that you think is worth sharing to everyone. And then this is kind of where I want to pull in other speakers besides me to do this. And then at the end, I would like to give some time for Q&A or like follow-up networking. So the purpose of this specific meeting today is going to be about how technology impacts business. So I'm very well versed in the technology side. Business side is something that I am weaker on, but has been kind of my last 2 or 3 years of self-learning and lots of reading. So I kind of want to pull in some of the models that I think are important to represent, and then how technology kind of complements these. So the three most popular ones I keep running into is the Lean, Six Sigma, and Agile. They are all kind of very oriented towards you're trying to iterate and improve, and there's some sort of methodology about how people try to interact with each other. So things with like Lean and Agile, Kaizens incorporated, they both can use Kanban. So Kanban's like the swim lanes of doing, done. You're trying to minimize waste. Don't work too hard without reviewing it to make sure you're on track for your business. All these kind of things is where we want our technology to complement, and you want it to kind of work with you and not work against you. And we've all probably experienced technology that runs into giving you issues and doesn't let you kind of work with your business. So it's not a great environment. And I've had more experience with corporate environments being more restrictive with technology than helping, and you're just constantly fighting and your productivity goes down. So definitely trying to strategize away from that. And small business kind of makes it nice because you can pivot really easily. You have to pivot, and then you're trying to enforce improvement, but there's also a lot of tools to navigate. So kind of how I view technology in business are these kind of core components. And I'm going to go into each one of these here in a little bit, but just to name them, there's convergence, governance, methods and standards, our lead pipelines, security, delivery, and then business continuity. And the IT strategies kind of wraps up everything. Now, I don't think there's an order, and some of the software that I've listed as examples cover 2 or 3 different sections. It's hard to do some software or have software that just covers one specific thing. And also, if you think of any other examples in the software, I just kind of did some searches. I kind of specialize in certain areas on here, and then other parts I can plug into, but I don't have a whole lot of experience with. So just to kind of walk through, I'm going to go, the first topic is convergence. So convergence is trying to get your business to work together as a team and have a common goal. So technology should be there to facilitate your goal. It should be transparent to all the people that are working with it, and then a clear definition of business value. So in the software world, Agile is built around this. So every sprint, you have kind of the goal of the sprint, all the tasks line up to support the sprint, and then at the end of the sprint, you kind of review and see how it happened. So the tools, Basecamp and Trello, that those two apply to really any business. And I know Asana and Jira a little bit more oriented to tech businesses, but using them, I know they could apply to other ones. But it kind of goes into making sure you can clearly define your goal. The tasks, kind of, you can have a hierarchy of tasks to define the structure of like how things need to happen in what order, and then generate the analytics to review your progress as you're going through towards your deadline. So and I forgot to mention on the previous slide that all of this stuff you want to be measurable and kind of create the scientific process around it. So business shouldn't be a kind of a gut feel. While gut feelings, many people can operate in that way. When scientific theory always comes in where you're trying to make changes to what you're doing, and you need to be able to measure and review those and see if they actually enforce it. So each one of the sections, they kind of have KPIs that come along with it. So trying to one to mention here, Agile, we use something called burn down charts, so you can keep track of how much work you started with and how much you have left at the end, and you kind of help establish a cadence. And I think it's pretty cool. I'm not as experienced with other workflows, governance, we're talking about to make sure information technology provides value to the organization needs, and then limit the risk. So if your business works all out of spreadsheets, we've all heard of issues where it gets deleted, someone overwrites data, or they delete a formula or something, and it kind of breaks everything in the future. Things like that cause a lot of risk. And as your business grows and matures, and you get your processes in place, you kind of can mature that part of your process into something that's more controlled, more restrictive. And this is one of the big areas that I've worked with internal applications. So building web applications to help wrap that spreadsheet of data and add rules and enforcement to how people do things. So it comes into like status tracking. But example would be you get a new order and you start processing the order. So once you start processing, it probably can't be changed. We all run into this, like in Amazon, when you put an order in, you change your mind and try to cancel it, but you can't. So they have things in place that make sure that their data does not become in such a state that they send stuff out to you for free. So and so there's kind of two parts of governance. It's corporate, which is a set of policies and procedures that define how government or your corporation's supposed to run, and IT is the policies and procedures use like technology provides, and your technology is trying to tie in to the corporate stuff. So the core values here, or the core tenets, is value, strategy, risk, and performance. So things like Google Cloud, Office 365, Zoho, custom applications. So kind of that internal stuff that you use to help move processes through the business. And then email is probably one of the most generic forms and overused things that causes most danger, because you have email, I don't know, you just have email. If that's what you use to track your day, you have to search, you constantly have to query it. It's not maintainable because it's not structured. So next topic, so standards and methods. So here we're trying to set patterns and practices for the business to kind of operate in and achieve the goal. So the important properties to maximize or to ensure quality and safety, achieve compatibility between your teams, and then also the products. Access, so you want availability, customer services has availability, everything kind of needs to be easily accessible. So even when you think about files on your file system, if you're trying to access something and you don't have the permissions, you have to go and request the permissions, and it just is a whole killer of productivity. So you're trying to satisfy your customers, your employees. You're trying to make sure that all the work that they're trying to do can get done. All your customers need to be able to contact you about issues, and you want quick throughput and just good turnaround time. It all kind of plays into the equation of your kind of credibility. Minimize costs. There's always standards and regulations you have to kind of comply with. I know in banking and healthcare, the government comes in and will audit and make sure that your data is secure, or that you're not doing anything sort of shady investments. And as you add in software. It can help you manage all of the flow of that. And again, it adds your KPIs, so you're able to track how well your customer service complaints are increasing or decreasing, how many you're able to address, how many are outstanding, you can get metrics on how long it takes certain types of things. So all of this helps play into the big equation. So there's software that helps track this type of thing. And this is kind of where the data analytics comes in. So not every software is going to cover every KPI. And this is where a lot of customization is very effective, and it can be expensive, but always try to gear it to being reproducible. And if you do it in spreadsheets are great about generating graphs and giving you visualization. You can kind of tweak things, but if you're trying to do an automated KPI, spreadsheets can be implemented this way, but it is kind of dangerous just because of the risks of I talked about in the previous slide with things deleting or disappearing. So some of the software you can use for this is Propel, Qualtrics, and Qualio. If you do custom things, there's Tableau. It does a lot of different integrations, and you can actually define your own metrics. I'm kind of excited about Data Studio by Google. It is a free platform that ties into many other softwares using APIs. And if you're not familiar with APIs, that just stands for Application Programming Interface. And it is a way to expose a service through the internet. So I kind of went down a rabbit hole. I've always been interested in artificial intelligence and data modeling and that. And it's crazy how much that's taken off of again in the last 5 to 10 years because of cloud computing is getting relatively cheap. So there's a lot of insights that we're able to gain now just by throwing these algorithms at it that probably we wouldn't be able to figure out as humans, because they can test all these theories a lot quicker than we can, tweak equations and all that. So it's very exciting and very also scary, because we can't always understand what the computer's doing. So even if it comes up with a solution, we may never understand really what it means. We kind of assume that it works. So so another part of the technology stack is our lead pipeline. So this, I feel like, is what we are most familiar with is small and medium-sized businesses, because this kind of correlates so much with money and be able to provide the resources to run our projects. So this type of software is responsible for prospecting, trying to go and find new leads, qualifying, trying to find what leads are relevant, being able to contact them. So there's tools that automate texting now and emails, and there's robocallers so that you can call people and then you can do 100 calls all at once and then have the 2 or 3 that actually get responses forwarded to a call center, so that you don't have people just actually sitting on it. Helps with relationship building. So it's years ago, you have salespeople. One person would kind of represent many clients, and which is great because you get one-to-one interaction. But as people move to other places and they try different things, you lose that relationship. So relationship software helps you keep track and that in-person kind of personalized feel without having it to rely on one person. So I mean, there's pros and cons to that, because a lot of these companies, they don't have any person that just goes to one person. They just find the first available, and it gives a really poor experience. So it's kind of like what we face with call centers and these big companies, that they're happy that you call, but they don't really want to build a relationship with you. So it's kind of where small businesses can come in and really provide that or provide an interface to the corporates as affiliates. So, and then as part of the relationship building, you got the follow-ups, and the follow-ups, a lot of these tools will help remind you to do it, and also you can schedule them. So some of the software, I've used Zoho just because it's free. Microsoft Dynamics is definitely a more full-featured one, but it comes with a little bit of a price, and they nickel and dime you to death. But the platform is great, and I know here in Texas, there's a lot of development that goes on. So Podio, it provides a very generic framework, and it's got a lot of great low-code solutions, which are where you can build your own workflows. So if you are pretty good with technology, you can kind of do a lot of point and clicking, build your own pipeline. You don't have to have custom software built, and then you kind of get that workflow management that can really streamline your business where you don't have to make sacrifices. But again, with kind of the Swiss Army knife of solutions, you'll kind of hit walls and also risks of, if you tie too much into one platform and they change something, then you kind of are at will with what they change, and you have to adapt accordingly. So it could be a breaking feature. So that's why a lot of times when the corporate structure, they will build custom software to do some of this stuff so that they are responsible for it, and they kind of mitigate those risks and gain new ones. But and Salesforce, I know, is another popular one. I know there's a bunch of these out here, but really you're trying to establish automated ways to help you not have to think about scheduling, make sure you are interactive, and stay in front of your clients. So now there's lead gathering. So there's databases you can plug into. One that I use through the public library is called Reference USA. It's actually just a database. They go and pull government documents to build these addresses, emails. They get the tax code. So, and see what else is useful. I think the employee size. So you can go and build a list of potential clients that you may not ever known existed, and pull those in. So it's a free service, but then they also have paid services where you can do automatic leads sent to your email, and then you can build Zapier, so kind of point and click automation solutions, and that'll be probably a future talk that I'll do for the next ones. But all automation is our friend as small business owners, because we can do more with less people, and it kind of is a different avenue of scaling without having to hire someone and kind of trying to fill their work if you don't have enough. So so next tenet is security. Everyone's familiar with security, but how it plays on our technology strategy is good and bad. So really, it's preventing unauthorized access to your data, trying to keep your ideas amongst your peers and people that you trust, and then also to mitigate against attacks that may disrupt. So if you're a software company, you don't want your business to be shut down because you didn't secure endpoint, or if you have a sales page, you don't want to have someone be able to refresh a page and it keeps submitting sales, and they keep getting their credit card charged. So things like this has to be incorporated in our model, and there's software that helps do this. Most software that we use that are third parties, it's worth reviewing their policies and their agreements and how they're going to use data and stuff like that, because a lot of times we just click OK, but they're able to take all of this data and reuse it for those purposes. So so what priorities the security? We want to make sure that we reduce our organizational risks, make sure we are compliant. So it kind of comes in with the ISO standards. If you operate in health, you have to make sure you comply with HIPAA rules. Supply chain. So supply chain you can view as process passing in your business, or also between parties. So if you build a product and you don't distribute it, then you have to send it to a distributor. So there's a lot of data passing that goes between each other. And there's automated avenues that you can do. And then there's the manual ones where you just send it. But there's a lot of collaboration and passing, and all this data exposure happens on the internet, and stuff that passes on the internet, you have to assume that people are trying to read. And if you don't encrypt it or don't cover your access, eventually someone's going to find it and kind of capitalize. So so what makes up security? Your networking. So if you own a business and you have a building where you have open file shares, so things like routers, switches, voice over IP, all of this, it requires firewalls. You have ad blockers. There are network monitoring tools to make sure that some of the latest malware doesn't get on your system and start self-propagating. Things like that, they're important because we kind of assume once it's on our network that it's safe, but there's always going to be issues that someone opens an email, there's an application that gets downloaded, and then it starts using those open doors to pass it to your network, and it could cause a shutdown. So voice over IP, I use some, I forget what it's called. I think it's IDX hardware that kind of takes your physical line, turns it into IP lines. These are kind of dumb devices where they're very specialized equipment, but they are very open, or kind of, what's the right word? Very easy to hack, because there's so many little type code or little punch codes. You can reprogram them. If you don't change those passwords, people come in, try the default passwords, and just wreak havoc on your system. There was someone I talked to that they were getting a bunch of outbound calls to Russia and Argentina and stuff, and it was causing a big bill. So having these constantly monitored is important. And there's companies that specialize in this, and especially it's expensive. And I think it's one of those things that small business owners don't prioritize, because you're like, I'm small, no one cares. So at least a little bit of strategy here and thought, and trying to create a policy in place. So so some of these platforms like Google Workspace, Azure, Microsoft AWS, all of these, if you build your cloud environment, these things can help you kind of piggyback on their security if you build your business around these technologies. So Google Workspace gives you a way to share things with people. It gives you role management. You can set up certain permissions, and because it's kind of created by these big companies, they create this from the ground up, and you don't have to think about it as much. So if you do on-premise hosting, that's where it's your responsibility. You kind of have to have someone to do these things. So VMware and Hyper-V, these are virtual hosts, and you load software on here like Microsoft Defender. You have Avast, Kaspersky. All of these, they're kind of the software that help you monitor your traffic. Small business networking equipment. Cisco is a big one. They have some pretty inexpensive. They're more expensive than the ones you would use for your home, but they're inexpensive for business class service where they come pre-built with firewalls, VPN, and also access to NASs. Just there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on here. So next slide, service delivery. So service delivery focuses on the technology that provides our product to our consumers, as well as getting customer feedback from our customers to make sure that they are pleased, or if they have issues, they can be helped. So to me, the properties here, the service delivery tie a lot into the convergent. So you're trying to identify what goals your product is trying to solve, or what problem are you trying to solve for people? What infrastructure needs to happen to be able to get your product to people and get that feedback from it and be able to provide a good service to make people come back. Develop your service and then keep iterating and improving. So in the software cycle, I kind of fall back to that just because that's what I have most exposure to. We try with the agile mindset, provide something pretty often and then try to improve on it every time. So manufacturing, if they follow the Lean or Six Sigma process, this is also kind of the process. So continuous improvement, Kaizen. So the technology that helps pull this back is there's things like Help Desk, Zendesk. That way people can report issues. Amazon has this already built in. They built their custom where you go in, market order, you can check, do online chat, make it email. Jira, I'm going to go through the software tools. Service Fusion. So I helped a company that was they did door services and installs. Service Fusion is kind of a service delivery platform that lets the people in the office create invoices and orders. It tracks inventory and helps the techs be able to get to the location of work with all the information they need. And as the techs do their work, they can keep track of the equipment that's there, get information about warranty, track serial numbers so they can, between visits, be able to track history of that item. Just all these little things kind of help build a good service flow to be able to provide your client with just keep them happy. That's the goal. So in software world, we use a platform a lot of times called Jira. There's Microsoft DevOps is another one. This is kind of a task management software, but it also helps the business set their goals and helps us as developers keep track of how well we're meeting the goal. So, and because service has to be met, that kind of directly goes on to as a part of the business mission. So we want to make sure that we're able to put those on the pipeline without too much delay, because we all know when you have issues and you have to keep fighting them for months and months and months, you kind of lose your credibility and view of the credibility of the company. And if you have opportunity to switch before they fix it, you probably will. So I feel like Microsoft has improved in this a lot since they, like the Windows 95, Windows 98 days. There's companies that don't, I think banks, I think, are the worst offenders of this. It feels like an archaic system now. They move very slow. That's one of the exciting things about cryptocurrency, but yeah, so supply chain management, NetSuite, Sage Intacct, they both handle, so you can track your inventory, you can do invoices. supply chain management, I think, is important for this because you want to keep a pipeline of resources available as you create your product. So in order to be able to kind of minimize your constraints, you have to have the availability of the resources. So constant monitoring of that. So the delivery of the product. So there's app stores. So kind of like our Microsoft or the there's Amazon App Store, Google Play, Apple Store, all of these kind of play for software. Now we have department stores, so you have to track the inventory that's going in and out of these places. You have to min-max your prices, give these places benefits of volume, but without being able to build your KPIs on this, there's a lot of stuff that you can make more money than, or you could lose money because you're over discounting. So it's just a lot of stuff to go on. And then you have the automation part of it. So now we're seeing Walmart move away from having checkers. They're moving to this model where you have to go and do your own checkout. They're minimizing their resources there, but are they going to affect their customer and the delivery service? That'll be something to learn, and they can be a guinea pig for most of us, but I know kind of a generation gap. I enjoy doing the self-checkout and all the automated stuff, but my parents just do not appreciate that. They kind of enjoy having that interaction, and just they don't like having to learn a new platform just for something they're going to do a few times. So kind of that example is for restaurant. Business continuity. So business continuity is about having this disaster recovery. If your house burns down, can your business keep going? If your building burns down, can it keep going? So having a lot of organizations, they have to have a disaster recovery plan for their investors. This is something important to make sure that if you're providing a software service, that there's some sort of failover. If something fails, you're not going to lose days of the data. Banks, they have to make sure that they're not going to lose all these internet transactions because it's not been backed up. You could have these threats that come in. I know our water company here locally had an attack where they had one of these ransomware attacks where all the data was encrypted and they had to pay out of it. So if you have good live backups, you don't have to worry about it. You just restore. So this comes down to making a checklist and kind of defining what you need to. That's kind of where these metrics come at: maximum recovery time. So how much can you be down before people are going to start losing confidence in your ability to serve them? What do you need to recover to be operational again? So this is recover point objective, and then analyzing the risk. So tools like Veeam lets you do hot and cold backups of your software system. So you can actually have a reproduced network of your computers out on the cloud. And I know there's been 3 companies I've worked with that have had this system in place. So basically, if there's a tornado that hits your building here in about 30 minutes, all their systems could be up and running on a remote environment, and people can work remotely with their laptops or from home. So Azure, I mean, if you're using cloud services on Azure, AWS, or Google Workspace, it's on the cloud. So as long as you have a browser, you kind of mitigate some of that risk. As a small business or a medium-sized business, the self-hosting can become a risk, and also and prone to failure. And you have to manage all of these backups and things like that. So a lot of times you can find there's a lot of service companies that will help you build these things. And I encourage you, if you don't do that, to do it, because of they'll cover the security part, disaster recovery. They'll help you build strategies to make sure that your environment is not going to be unrecoverable. Oh, that's my template slide. Anyway.